Hello and good morning. We're live with Cedric Berger, and I'm really excited for this one. Not to say that I wasn't excited for Dorian. Dorian's great. Live wire, that guy. But we're here with Cedric, and yeah, Cedric is the head of knowledge extraction and integration at Roche. Uh, right now, he's carrying a more suitable label. He's a knowledge scientist. He has pursued academia and a set of accomplishments, not for the sake of the intellectual challenge, but rather to understand better how the world works as an integral map. There's so much to learn and know. And he has a PhD in biophysics. He has an MBA in innovation. Um, I, last time that we spoke, we had a very interesting conversation. So I hope you enjoy how he dispels the notion of relying on external factors as a symbol of hope. Um, anyways, I'll let you go on, Cedric. I'll share your screen
Thanks,
as well.
thanks, Joaquin. Thanks for having me. It's the first time I joined the Swarm community. I hope I'll be useful to this discussion, and I have a different way to present here. It's using a canvas. It's a personal knowledge graph that I'm using always. And the purpose is not for everyone to read every single words that are on those slides. It's more to understand the big picture in a system thinking way and see the thinking logic as well. So the title here is Messianism in AI Time, and I will try to explain how we can really keep our feet on the ground by applying some scientific and system thinking as guardrail to help us to keep first our brain sanity, because there are so many things flying around. The world has become so volatile. And second, to gain a competitive advantage. So first here, I'm going to go through a small disclaimer because I'm not an economist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a biologist by training with some data information knowledge management skills. And I'll try to run through this presentation, which is first about humans, their brain and their ways of thinking. Second, it's about the history of progress and how progress is conceptualizing our notion of innovation and how the society is improving. And the last part is how to cope with this deluge of data, AI, and digital stuff that are around us by using system thinking and scientific thinking. So first is about what makes us what we are. So this is our brain. So here you see some neurons, and those neurons naturally they reflect a network made of nodes and connection between those nodes. So in the previous speech, Dorian and Joachim were mentioning knowledge graph. I've been using knowledge graph for a decade now, trying to push that to have the technology to support scientific thinking and system thinking, because this doesn't work with traditional relational database. And this is a natural pattern that we find here in the brain. We find it in molecules, we find it in the stars, we find it whenever we go on a whiteboard and we would like to explain things. We don't write plain narrative English, we draw boxes and relationship between boxes. And the only thing that these neurons they do during their life is that they connect. So here I had a little video. Here is just a screenshot. I'm sorry, but by the way, this presentation will be available online and you will be able to access it. I'll forward the credential to Joachim so that he can follow them to you. So how does the brain acquire what it contains? And this probably you noticed and you have heard all along. Human people are hardwired to understand stories. We are a species that is telling stories because we are remembering stuff via stories. Why? Because the stories contain emotions and information, and the brain is encoding information very well when it's associated with emotion. And this information, when it solves a problem or answers a question, it's called knowledge. And this is the famous data, information, knowledge, wisdom model where you have raw data at the bottom that basically is meaningless if you don't put context. And as soon as you put context, it becomes information. Now you start to understand what those numbers mean, and they become knowledge when you can answer a question about. This question here, what's the average size of a German person, a woman, or a man? And you have the measurement and the units so that it makes sense, and it is knowledge. So that being said, how brains work. We have seen how it's the infrastructure, neuron connectings, encoding it via emotion information, and it works basically in a very standard way for all of us. That doesn't mean that we have the same brain, but the basic physiology and the basic molecules and the units like neurons are the same for all of us and for all other animal species. So they are made of atoms, molecule, organelles, cells, tissues. These tissues exhibit cognitive functions, and these create some basic functionalities for our brain that makes up our intelligences. And just before Dorian and Joachim were talking about biases, and we have always to keep that in mind that our brain has optimized the way it works by developing biases. And basically, we have three brains. I'm not going to go long here. Primitive brain, like lizard, reptilian, social brain, and metaphorical brain. And with the metaphorical brain come the reasoning, the rationality, the thinking, the questioning the world, the consciousness as well. So this is the most, at least what we think, the most elaborated brain, at least the only one that we think is conscious of its own end, of the death that is all awaiting us. And the brain works based on two fundamental things that are based on hormones, which are pain and pleasure. Okay, so this is the same for everyone. At the very heart of our brain, the reptilian brain, and those hormone driven reaction, the stress hormone and the pleasure hormone are what drives everything of what we do. Whether we like it or not, it's not the question. This is a fact as demonstrated by science. And curiously enough, we see that the pleasure and the pain have a common neurobiology, basically. It's like laughing and crying. It's the same stuff. So that being said, we can go to the second thing, which is what is driving us basically is minimizing this pain and maximizing the pleasure. While minimizing the pain, because historically, when our brain evolved, it was avoiding negative situation that can trigger the death of the individual because he was eating bad fruits or facing dangerous animals and so on. So those painful experiences were memorized and were really transmitted across stories to the next generation. So this apparition of consciousness based on bias, and this is basically the codex of all brain bias. You have always the links of the artifacts that I'm providing here. You see that they are numerous, so let's be careful about that. But with this consciousness and reasoning came pains and sorrows, because as soon as you ask questions, how the world is working, where I come from, where am I going, these are questions that are not necessarily easy to answer. And this unknown triggers some uncertainty, and the uncertainty is triggering stress hormones. So this metaphorical brain, the neocortex and the evolved brain, is also something triggering a lot of worries, especially the worries of dying at some point, which we have realized will happen to all of us. So the reasoning capabilities we're really struggling with explaining mysterious phenomena. The disease, the suffering, the death, what happens after the body dies, and it wanted to minimize this pain. So there are. You need to find answers to this phenomenon because usually you cannot stay in doubt, because with doubts comes troubles. So what happened is that you have two ways basically to answer those unanswered questions. Either you go quick and easy and you just invent stories that satisfy yourself. Okay, I don't understand why the sky is blue, so I can tell a story to my kids, for example, that a giant painter came and painted the sky in blue. Okay, the kids are happy, simple explanation, but it's trigger happiness, pleasure hormones. No stress, no unanswered question, it's good with that. The long and difficult way is to use a methodical approach to try to really understand by having the most elaborated paradigm that human beings have come up with over those 5,000, 6,000 years of history, if we start the invention of writing as a beginning of history, which is the scientific methodology based on observation using our sensors in hypothesis, validating, invalidating hypothesis, and so on. So I'm going to take a bit of an helicopter view here and elaborate on the stories, which for some historians resulted in the religion that offered like a package of story to explain unexplainable stuff. So this we could see in many societies, whether it's a Neolithic, whether it's in the South America Mayas and so on, or in the European societies. It's always the same when it comes to religion. And it doesn't matter if it's true or false. What matters is that if they make sense to the people receiving the message or not, and if they can minimize the pain and maximize the pleasure. So I will come back to the science. And importantly is that these reassuring packages were always based on the same paradigm, which is triggering hope for a better future. And here you see me coming with this Messianism stuff, because this is always the hope that a Messiah will come to save us from whatever pain that will face us in our journey. So if we now look at the history of that, and if we link it to the notion of progress and its evolution. So the progress is defined as a set of advancement in tech, science, and social organization. And this definition came out Europe, the 17th and 18th century during the Enlightenment time. But it started basically very early before in the Neolithics, where people invented tools to remove some pain because they had to work hard to survive and so on. And they invented tools already to minimize this pain. And this, you can see that has transferred into what we call now the industrial revolutions. And there are 4 of them, maybe 5 now with the AI. And this was turbocharged 200 years ago when people discovered almost free and highly abundant energy in the form of fossil fuels. None of these things could have happened without the discovery of oil and coal and fossil fuel energy. And this led to the notion of progress being completely associated with technological evolution. Now, implicitly, people only most of the time understand progress associated with technology. There is very little of social aspect, process improvement with it. Most of it is related to technology, which is a reductionist view of progress. And all of that was done in the same way to maximize pleasure, because it was painful tasks replaced by machines. And now, if we look at, if we convert all the machine power that are at our service, supporting us in our daily tasks, transportation, housework, and so on, we have roughly 600 slaves, human slaves, at our disposal to make that possible. So we remove this pain from us. And this is really to focus now on comfort and leisure, mostly enabled by this fossil fuel society. So if we put that in parallel, there is a social evolution that went with it. So with materialism, value capitalism always existed, because what is rare are always more valued than what is frequent and abundant. And then we had development of trade, money, economy, the first banks, the finance, and all of that enabled by the cheap and abundant economy. So this led to the 2 things that we know more than well: productivism and consumerism. Productivism on the producer side, and consumerism on the customer side. But the problem is now that it's too much and too fast. Too much and too fast, and we see the signs all over the planet that is becoming a wasteland with wasted people, basically. I just copied a recent report of the World Economic Forum here about mental health at work. Okay, so this is very, very quickly the social evolution put in parallel with progress. And now if we focus on the digital transformation that we are in, and if we apply these two different aspects, the progress technology plus the development of finance and the profitability of what we want to sell, we want to produce, consume, overproduce. We see that also happening in the digital landscape. So this is from Matt Turk. This is 2012 summary of the big data landscape. This is 2021. This is 2023, and you see it's increasing. It's increasing fast. And these are the spendings for the digital transformation and the prediction for until 2027. 3.9 trillions that we invest in technologies, in systems, in tools, or services associated to these tools. The result with that, it's a huge complexity with the data. Because all of this system, every single of this system is creating new data, transforming existing data, copying and pasting data here and there. We are duplicate all over the place. What's the value of this data? Nobody knows. It's accumulating a lot on servers. It's using energy, and it's an exponential growth. This is the prediction for the data volume in zettabytes. So you see it's exponentially growing, and the result is that we are basically in a data maze or a data mess. Because among all these systems, the data, the information, and the knowledge is completely diluted. And now it's even becoming worse with AI, and I will come back to that later. And this is increasing with every new system. Every new system comes with a new proprietary model and logic. You have to migrate it. You create a new silo. You create new interfaces that are many-to-many mappings between the data, attributes, and objects. You duplicate, you transform more, and you increasing the entropy. And here I go back to Dorian and discussion where we were discussing about, describing this entropy, if it's possible. Otherwise, we are lost. Hence the scientific and the system thinking to harness this complexity. So what is the cost of knowledge? Actually, if we go back to this DIKY model, and if we take the same example, when you apply at the bottom here, the data mess that is created by this piling up of systems interconnected at physical level in a many-to-many fashion, the information that you have starts to be dislocated, and the knowledge that you get out of that is really fragmented. And when you put your shoes in a big organization, some of it is also externalized, so you don't even master it anymore. And at the end, the amount of knowledge that you need at the top of the pyramid is really small, and it's always the same. But now the cost to get it, considering the mess in the data and the fragmented information that describes this data, is becoming always more costly by the day, either in time or effort or money. So here comes AI, okay? That is first a buzzword, topping the hype. If you if you see the Gartner hype, it's really on the top. It exists. I mean, generative AI, especially autoregressive neural network, exists since the 80s. They are just using and applying statistic, and what they do better than human is basically recognize the pattern in data where human brain cannot, because it's too complex. And they use this pattern to do this prediction. That's it. So basically, when you see a text that is generated by ChatGPT, it's not a text that has a meaning. What you see is an association of words based on probabilities that the model has learned. That's it. The model doesn't understand the world. He's just creating sentences based on probabilities. Okay, I will not go via this. You will find that online. We are all about large language model. They are blossoming every day. So the pace of the evolution of the technology is really fast. It renders individual and business crazy because you cannot cope with that. And they have pros and cons. So here you see a picture of Jan Lequin talking in Bayern, in Germany, last November, where he clearly says, I mean, these models, they really suck because they give an illusion to people that they understand the world because they talk well. But they are not. It's like a great actor playing, for example, a jet pilot that is actually in reality not a good jet pilot at all. It's just playing the role and looking like a good jet pilot. So the problem when you use that for you, for your business, is the following. is what I'm doing with this model bound to quality, veracity, validation, regulation, customer trust, and all this very important stuff? If it's not the case, then it's okay. You can use them at will. It remains a toy. No worries. If it's the case, then you have to think twice. Because here you can really be fooled and go into big troubles with that. And I think we start to see the AI bubble that is starting to deflate. So this artificial intelligence, it's nothing more than a new hope. And a new hope, and I think this is my way of thinking, as a new Messiah coming, giving the human being a new hope that we will have an easier life because we will remove some pain. For example, the pain of writing a scientific article. We can see thousands of them now being rejected from the big scientific journals because they are written by machines. For example, writing a job description. For example, writing a recommendation letter for a former employee, for a former student. All of that. I mean, what used to be something that was something that done by our brain, that was training our brain because we were constrained to do it, will become something done by the machine. Hence the question, is this AI upgrading human being or downgrading human being? And this is the key question, basically. So this is not new. Life would be easier for human being, for business, new opportunities to make money. It's a new hope as well. For the human, always the same, maximizing pain, minimizing pain, sorry, maximizing pleasure. And for business, a new opportunity to make money, which is based on the economy of promises. It's not new. We have seen it with blockchain. We have seen it with the human genomes. Million, even billion invested based on promises. And actually, after several years, nobody looks back. What was the promise at the beginning and where we are? And do we get a return on investment? Most of the time, we are not even able to calculate that. And we sometimes we are not interested anymore because it has passed and the human being are focusing on the future only. Very few learning from the past. So as I said, the bubble started to collapse. Here is a recent article from Goldman Sachs about this. You will have access to it. It's really well written, fully argumented with many numbers. And this is a piece of tech. So inherently, it's not good or bad. It's like the understanding of the nuclear power. It's the usage of it that is good or bad. With the nuclear power, you can either produce electricity or you can kill people, basically. It's the same with AI. So we have to be cautious that AI is not used against human to downgrade humans, but used really to optimize basically the society and the well-being of humans and the nature, by the way, because if the nature goes bad, human will go bad as well. So this is also a recent paper about Microsoft talking about that. So I'm gonna increase the pace here because I'm late. So this is the question: what do we want, being upgraded or downgraded by AI? So here is my proposal: how to cope with this digital deluge. Is to have basically beacons that you can apply to reassure you that you are in a safe place, applying a safe methodology. So system thinking is not new. Developed in the 70s by Meadows, especially at the MIT. It's about understanding the digital complex context around us, or context not digital either, the politics, geopolitics, the biosphere, the whatever is acting on us. And how you can understand that? You can never understand it fully, so you need to create a model. And right now what I'm doing is create a digital twin using knowledge graph in organization, but you can do that also with your life. This is what I'm doing with this, second brain and knowledge management tool here that I'm using to present. And this is what you do naturally. As I was saying at the beginning, when you want to explain a complex situation in context, what you do is to draw boxes and edges. You don't write stuff on the board like this. And the cool thing is that when you do that in a graph mode with the knowledge graph, you also make it machine understandable. It's domain specific, it's governed, it's interoperable by nature based on a shared metadata standards, which is RDF and the semantic web principle. So I guess you guys know what knowledge graph are. They are used for a long time for Google. You have it here on the right side as these properties for every entity you look for. Same in Wikipedia. all the big digital native companies, they have a knowledge graph at least to manage their metadata. And this is the methodology that I preconize basically to harness this complex contextualization that you have to apply to anything that you are doing, especially in the professional digital space. So the second approach is to combine that with a scientific thinking, okay? As I was mentioning, I think it's the best, the most mature approach. So how do you apply that? By having it as a guardrail so that you not get fooled by others, by yourself, and by machines, of course. So you can do everything with LLM. This is what the expert call a Turing tar pit, but it's not a reason why you should use them for everything. So why? Because first, they cost a lot of money. I mean, the GPU service providers, they are making big money. As I was mentioning in the beginning, it's a new opportunity to make money. So NVIDIA, you have all seen the share price of the NVIDIA stock option. It's skyrocketing, and now I think it's the most valued one in the world, beyond Microsoft and Apple. And of course, because these models are not reliable yet. They hallucinate, they are biased because they have been trained on the internet that we all know is mostly written by men between 18 and 50, Caucasian and speaking English and so on. They are unspecific. They are not specific to your life, to your business. They don't speak your jargon, the business jargon of your organization, and they don't understand the world. So they cost a lot in money. And so NVIDIA, here is the Financial Times, and they cost a lot of power as well. Microsoft is going nuclear to power the AI ambition. Okay. So how do we apply the scientific thinking here? It will prevent you to go into this precipitated frenetic usage due to the hype. And you will also use it to show that your AI solution adds value or not. So the scientific methodology, I don't want to go into it. It's well known. You can find it online. You have to follow all these steps, ask the questions, follow the formulate hypothesis, design conduct experiment, validate, invalidate, collect data, analyze, and at the end, ideally, you publish your result and you go for peer review and peer confirmation. You don't want to go that far with what you do, but at least having a thorough process to define the success up front. Okay, what do you want to do based on a thorough business analysis? Define the success, define success metrics upfront. Okay, how you will measure the success of AI? If you don't have these metrics, you will never know. I mean, what's the value of blockchain? We don't know. We don't know. So my timer is ringing, so I will finish by this. So this is how we do that. We call that an Agile Plus methodology. So we use a graph in the background. We apply the scientific methodology. The graph enables us to also have the context. So we verify the data by design, and we use ontologies for data integration. Okay, and then we use also machine learning and retrieval augmented generation, for example. And eventually, we use the graph as a source for artificial intelligence. I think I didn't mention the use case in pharma. I will quickly go back here. So what we do right now is basically two categories of AI stuff. We do question answering chatbot, and we do automatic text writing. And I think all the use case can be more or less attributed to one of these two categories. The question answering chatbot is always the same. You have a repository of legacy documents or data. You will use it to answer current or future questions. And the text writing is the same. You have a legacy repository of artifacts that always have the same structure and content. You will use it to generate GXP deviation report, chemical substance inventory, safety reports, and so on and so on. Just to conclude, because I think I'm already over time. So all of that you can find on the website of my nonprofit organization, biomedima.org. I will give the credential to Joaquin. So AI is a piece of technology. It's not inherently good or bad. It's a usage, okay? The I truly depend on the people, the data, and the usage of it. So the people, if they follow the right methodology, if they have a vision, if they want to do explainable AI, or just smoke and mirrors just to get promoted or have a bonus. It's different stuff. You need to pay attention to be rigorous here. An AI is always as smart as the data available to it. So there is a big piece where you need to curate the data. Otherwise, AI will never work. Don't jump on using AI if you have really bound to quality, veracity, law, regulation, and so on. Be careful. The world, especially in our digital and AI times, is not simple to understand. So on AI is adding more noise and complexity than it was before. So we have to deal with this complexity, ideally harness and apprehend it so that we get a competitive advantage and a better understanding of the world than others. And for that, I was proposing system thinking and scientific thinking. Of course, everyone has his different way to do that, but at least for me, it gives guardrail to what I'm doing. Let's not forget that the brain is always biased, so we need to keep that in mind, and that the system is also biased because it has always a profit flavor in everything that is getting out there. So we need to be careful not to fall into this profit only. Profit is fine if it's reasonable, but it's when it's a profit only and promises only, then customers start to be disappointed and they lose the trust in the product or the service. So we have to be careful with that, and to keep us away from falling in those pitfall scientific thinking and system thinking. Okay. So with that, I would like really to thank you for your attention. And by the way, what we have done has been published in archive here, and you will also find the link in this presentation. Thank you.
Um, Thank you, Cedric. Once we conclude this presentation, uh, it'd be great if you could share those resources, and we'll put them out on social media so people can access them. And yeah, thank you very
Yeah.
much for covering the bridging and covering the expansive overlap between the elements in human evolution and the evolution of industry, of interest, of society. I think this helps to integrate everything else that we've seen so far. We're going to zoom in into a different angle, into a tasty food angle in the next one. So I hope you guys can tune into that one as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, can you blame a person for avoiding pain to seek pleasure? It's only natural. But also, we need to endure pain to attain greater pleasure than we would otherwise attain the easy way. Um,
That's the key thing, is that I think human being and other species can only accomplish themselves in some level of constraints. If you remove completely those constraints, you don't progress anymore. You don't evolve anymore. This is the basic rule of evolution of life. So we don't want AI to remove all these constraints, but to keep them at the right level, at the right person, at the right task, so that the learning are optimized.
there's that story of the adventures or the Odyssey of Ulysses, that he sails from island to island on a gigantic conquest to do this big hero's journey. And they encounter an island filled with beautiful women that feed them these lotus flowers that were sort of like opioids that made them
Yeah.
sleepy and forget, and they'd be caressed and have all the pleasure in the world. But that was ultimately a fruitless situation that they needed to break out of so that they can go and continue their journey and continue to evolve and meet their objectives. So that's what you invoked a lot of that in me with this
I'm
presentation.
trying. I didn't took any reference from the Greek ancient mythology, but I could, especially also in the philosophers. There are many reference to that in many ways of thinking and philosophical logics.
Thank you, Cedric. All right, well, we'll take
My
a short
pleasure.
break, and then we're gonna go on with the next one.
Thank you. Bye.